Welcome, Legacy Hack subscribers, to another episode. We got the full crew here today, myself, Jack, Tyler, and Kyle, coming back from having a baby girl, he and his
Heyo.
wife. Yeah, excited to be here with you guys today, and we're gonna do a deeper dive on Tyler McCart and his story with kind of starting infinite banking, but some of the background that led him into that. And yeah, we just heard that we're about to hit the year mark ago when he, yeah, kind of felt the push via the Lord to start sharing about this with others as well. So excited to hear your story, Tyler. And yeah, Kyle and I'll kind of do rapid fire questions here just to yeah, paint a picture of how this has worked for you, why you're passionate about it. And yeah, we'll start with um, what were you doing like leading up to learning about infinite banking? Did you we know Ryan Haley, another unbridled wealth strategist, the one who introduced you to it. Were you looking for it though? What was the context, work wise, family wise, that kind of got you in the front door with this strategy?
Yeah, wow. So I'm honored, obviously, that I can actually talk about this, guys, and that you actually pay attention to me. So to answer your question directly, Jack, I was not looking for this. I had no idea. I didn't even know how to spell infinite banking. I didn't know how to. I didn't even believe in whole life policies at all, as far as cash value life insurance. I didn't even know what that was. I mean, I had some term policies on myself, but honestly, I had no idea that you could actually utilize cash value life insurance as this opportunity. So, kind of where I was at. So, you got to go back to 20. Really, the time that happened was in 2020. December of 2020 was a very pivotal moment in my life where my dad, unfortunately or fortunately, however I want to look at it, I mean, he loved Jesus and he was a Christian, so he actually got a little graduation ceremony that happened too soon, in my opinion, and so that left me and my sisters because my mom had actually passed away in 2017, and my mom had left behind a family trust through my grandfather, and my dad was kind of managing that. And I kind of came alongside of my dad to kind of help him out a little bit. And my dad had several other businesses of his own and other investments of his own that he had. And the problem with it was is that when my dad passed, my dad just had a will, and that was it.
Hmm.
Um, so here I was, now the executor to my dad's estate, and I had started having to make a whole lot of decisions about my dad's businesses that he had. There was employees that were involved. There were legacy
Wow.
employees that had been around for 20 plus years.
Hmm.
There were a whole lot of equipment. He actually owned a construction equipment business. Not, excuse me. He has a construction company that did water lines and sewer lines here in the Atlanta, Georgia area. And yeah, me and my sisters, on top of all that, we got thrust into business for ourselves, with ourselves. And, Kyle and Jack, I don't know if you've ever been in business with your siblings. If you never have, it's kind of interesting and a little different. Okay. I definitely recommend wearing a hard hat and also having a soft heart as well. Um, but needless to say, at that point, just to kind of give you a little bit more of a picture, I'd actually gotten let go of my corporate job in August 2019. So notice the time frame. So in August 2019, I got let go of my corporate job. I again went before the Lord. Again, I'm a Christian, so this is just how I do things. I went before the Lord and said, Lord, you signed my paycheck, and lo and behold, with me saying that to him, he's like, look, I don't want you going back to corporate America. You're done. Well, I'm like, okay, I need to make money somehow. Well, I'd had enough cash reserve built up over time due to some bonuses from my corporate job and even a little bit of inheritance money that I had already received, but nothing substantial. And so then flash forward to that December of 2020, I'm kind of at this point where I'm going, holy cow, what am I going to do? How I'm going to do things? There's a lot of pressure involved, and my wife and I, after about 2.5 months, I just said, sweetheart, let's just get away for a weekend. And we actually went to the Biltmore, which is obviously, if you know anything about the Biltmore over here in North Carolina, it's part of the Vanderbilt family. And so I'm around all this like legacy stuff, inheritance stuff, and
Hmm.
the largest home in the U.S. And I come back from there. I'm at church, and I feel the Lord just kind of prompt my heart to say, "You need to call Ryan Haley." And I'm like, "Okay, I haven't talked to Ryan in over a year. Okay, I'll call Ryan." So next week I get on the phone with Ryan, and Ryan's after I catch him up on everything, Ryan says, "Hey, you need to read this article about what the Rockefellers would do and how that they were able to have their wealth maintained for 7 generations versus what the Vanderbilts lost it in 3 generations." And so, Jack, that was my first introduction, and that was kind of a snapshot right
Hmm.
there of where I was at.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing all that. That's, yeah, quite a whirlwind with like a job loss and kind of crossroads there, but then unexpected, it sounds like kind of earlier passing of your dad amidst working with him on that stuff. Um, so yeah, Kyle, do you got any follow-up you want to give there?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'll lean in. Well, I know that we all know this on this call, and some of you listening know this, and some of you don't. But infinite banking is really a tool and a vehicle that you use similar to a budget, and you strategize with it. You use it similar to a bank. And so, in your story, as you continue, Tyler, why did, as you learn about infinite banking, what the Rockefellers did with it, why did that strategy make sense to you, and why did you want to try to implement it into your family?
Yeah, so the whole Rockefeller method attracted me because they had preserved that wealth, and they, as I went down the rabbit hole, I learned that you know it wasn't like it was a bank, and the bank was something that they were able to use as a vehicle to really kind of store the wealth and warehouse the wealth to where they could go out and create other ventures with that. And it also kept the family together too. I mean, last time I checked, when my mom and dad would say, "Hey, we're going to so and so for vacation and we're paying for the lodging," normally everybody shows up, right? So money has a way of attracting families and keeping them together. Okay.
Hmm.
And so that attracted me too. Okay. And I I just saw this, this perpetual thing like, okay, I can actually bring the money, together, have it warehoused. I realized, Ryan did a great job of kind of educating me and teaching me along the way and giving me different resources, but educating and teaching me that this is not an investment. It was not an investment at all. It was more of an asset that I was creating at the time that could be leveraged as to go and find other investments with that. And that again was kind of the thought process behind it. And the other thing, and the last thing I'll say that Ryan did a great job with is, he talked about that this is a business that you are creating, Tyler. It's not just this, thing, set it and forget it, and la di da di da. This is something that I was actually creating, and I had to understand and had to get my hands a little dirty with it. I also realized, actually within the first year of actually me, kind of uh, getting the policies executed and enforced, that even after a year, I realized that I didn't know everything and I needed to start to educate myself even further. And I actually took out a policy loan probably too early that kind of put me in quote unquote penalty bucket of the 2.3% of the money that I had put in there, okay, of the IUL that I had. My wife at the time got a whole life policy on her. I got an IUL on me. And yeah, I mean, those were kind of the first kind of initial things that I was attracted to. It was business stuff. I was establishing a business. I was creating an asset. I was going to be able to take that asset and be able to leverage it to find other opportunities. And it was also that whole family thing. And that wasn't so much it right there. I would say the family thing probably came later on, Kyle, down the road of what I've started to realize even more. But that was kind of the genesis of it.
Yeah. Okay, I'm curious now based off that. So you mentioned going into business with your sisters. What
Mm.
was the process of like you had inheritance coming to you, it sounds like, but
Yep.
definitely like existing current businesses, assets that needed to either be operated further, like are you still working that, or did you guys sell those businesses and different assets that you received over time? And if so, like we know with infinite banking, IUL or whole life, like you're funding premiums ongoing with those. So if there was a bunch of one-time liquidity events, like what was the plan to fund those and kind of capitalize that system ongoing amidst, like you mentioned, losing your job? Like curious how the plan all came together amidst those different yeah, kind of scenarios with it.
Yeah. So I didn't really even know that because there's not a book that's out there written for executors of an estate. Okay. At least not that
You
I
have
could
to get one to
find.
write.
I mean,
Yeah.
maybe I mean we need to write one, guys. Okay, I could definitely help out with that because I've got some experience. Yeah, so I quickly realized the difference between a family trust and a will. Number one,
Hmm.
um, because with the family trust, I was obviously the assignee just because of how my mom and dad had it. So I had to sign two pieces of paper and send it back to the attorney, and I was now the director of that trust. Okay, versus my dad's will that he had set up, where that I had to go get attorneys involved to help me probate his will, which took probably about 4 or 5 months just to be able to get it out of probate to where that we could start to access any of my dad's stuff.
Hmm.
So dad passed away in 20 December of 2020. My dad's assets that were not a part of the trust, but all my dad's assets, we did not have control of those assets until 5 months later.
Hmm.
Okay. And you're talking about businesses and, um, you know, paychecks that have got to go out. He didn't have any kind of bank accounts that were, was it PD, paid on death, I believe it's called, that it's automatically assigned to someone. He didn't have any of that.
Hmm.
Wow.
And yeah, wow, I was right. so, so it
You can't
to
just
say
like
the
log in and act like you're him. That doesn't work like that.
well, if you know my dad was doing well enough just to know how to open up his iPhone. Okay, if you asked him to, I mean, my dad was like close to 70 years old, great
Yeah.
man, but he didn't like keep a password. We were searching for things in the house. It just wasn't organized.
Yeah.
Okay. And, again, no, it happened so suddenly that we didn't have time. My dad obviously didn't have time to prepare any of that stuff. I mean, dad went to the hospital and boom, 3 weeks later, he was with Jesus and with my mom. And
Hmm.
so with that, with being in business with my sisters, um, I praise God that my sisters trusted me. Okay. And I had over the years, I hadn't been, I had integrity with my sisters and even their husbands too, because that helped smooth things over. To we still had disagreements, we still had some arguments that we had, but at least we still were walking in a good step of like, this is something we're going to stick together on, we're going to accomplish it. So yeah, that was a little bit of how that looked right there, Jack, on that side.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
That feels like each person I've known that has gotten around infinite banking for any period of time has expressed that it's changed the way that they look at money. But
Mm.
you're sharing this really unique story that obviously probably changed the way that you looked at money going through that experience. And I'm curious, between the two of them, what has changed for you?
Mm. Unpack that a little bit more for me, Kyle.
Like you looked at money a certain way before you inherited all of this, and you looked at money a certain way before you implemented infinite banking. And you kind
Mm.
of did the two, along like somewhat together. And I'm curious to hear like what changed from before that time to after that time to now in this conversation about how you look at money and finances, and why has what you've changed in the way you look at money led you to doing infinite banking and introducing more people to infinite banking.
Yeah, no, it's really good. I haven't been asked this question, and so this is a really good question right here. I don't think I've ever talked about it. Definitely not publicly. Um, so let's say pre-infinite banking. Let's just call it that. Pre-infinite banking, I was always in the mindset of I'm going to pay cash for whatever. I'm going to be completely out of debt. I mean, Amy and I before infinite banking, we pay cash for our home that we live in. Okay. We also, if we went on a whatever a vacation, we paid cash for that vacation. We had no credit card debt. We didn't believe in it. We just had been. I won't say that we were totally like, uh, Dave Ramsey-ish, okay, because I still looked for business opportunities and investment things, and even with all that said, I actually started up during COVID. During COVID, so right before my dad passed away, and this is kind of where things started to kind of shift a little bit with me, and my eyes started getting opened up a little bit of leveraging, an asset and not being it a lazy asset, if I can say it
Mm.
that way. Okay. So I'd had some, like I said before, I had this cash that was just kind of sitting there, not doing a whole lot. Well, actually, one of my mentors approached me and said, "Hey, Tyler, I know that you've got some cash just kind of sitting around. I would be open. You can pay me a little bit of money, but I'd be open to actually teaching you how to do options trading." And
Mm.
so I started to learn about options trading, about time decay of money, and how that, being able to leverage your money about certain percentages and everything. These are all new things for me that I had no idea about. And so, as I was learning all that stuff, all of a sudden, my dad passes away, and then all of a sudden Ryan comes into the picture and says, "Hey, here's a way that you can actually have your money working in two different places. One is an uninterrupted compounding interest, which was holy crap. I again did not know that could even exist. Okay. And then secondly, I could actually still have the other, almost that same dollar go and work somewhere else for me and create even a greater return on that, and me to be able to put that back into my bank." When Ryan started to explain that concept to me, Kyle, man, Katie bar the door. I was like, holy cow, no one ever showed me this. And obviously there's more to this than what I thought. And not to get too further down the road with it, but I started to really, it was actually the Rothschilds. Okay. And the Rothschilds, they're actually a Jewish family. And here I did some studying, on the Jewish people, and there's a lot of bankers in the Jewish community, and they do very well for themselves, and they're not afraid of debt, and they use debt to their advantage. Okay, not to lord it over somebody else, but to create that interest that would help them in the long run. And I didn't understand that concept. I was always like, just stay away from debt. That's the plague. It's not anything. And it wasn't until I started learning about lazy assets and having actually you can borrow against those and use those. That was a big difference right there that shifted my mindset and the double strategy too. So there you go.
Yeah,
Thank you for sharing.
that's great. Coming up on, yeah, probably a couple last questions here. I'm curious, like, yeah, you just mentioned options trading. What, yeah, since you're 5 years in now, you mentioned an early policy loan that was maybe ill-advised. Yeah, how have you put your policies to work since you've used them? Do you, I know you have, yeah, like have insured everyone in your family. Talked a little about your kids and teaching them how to use that in the past. Do you kind of have a different purpose for the cash value of each policy? Do you view it as a collective pool of capital across the whole family that you use for whatever comes along? Yeah, with like family of six, how do you operate the system?
Yeah, no, that's again, um, great question, Jack. So in the very beginning, um, I wish I'd really kind of thought through a little bit more about the purpose of or the opportunities I might look for outside of, what I was going to do with the money. And I probably could have leaned on Ryan a little bit more just to be in full transparency. So that first $10,000, so I literally took a $10,000 loan out. And I don't even know why I did it. Honestly, thinking back on it, that's how stupid I was back
Just
then.
to see
Okay,
what it felt like.
I really did. I just wanted to do it, just to do it. I didn't call Ryan up. I didn't even tell anybody other than my wife that, hey, I was gonna take a policy loan out. I just wanted to see what it felt like and what it did. And was this really a real thing? I mean, I wanted to know it was real, that I could get money back out, but it's still there. I mean, is this really happening? So anyway, I did it, and and then the anniversary comes around for our the whole entire first year, and Ryan, we do our business review, our financial review, and Ryan goes, "Oh, you actually have a policy loan out, Tyler. Um, did you realize that you're not getting full credit for what you had as far as your IUL?" And I'm like, "No, I didn't know that." And so I quickly learned. I said, "Okay, I made a mistake doing that right there." And but then I know I took so now flash forward, I'm in my second year. I don't believe my second year I did anything because I knew that I couldn't do anything with the money. I started building up cash that I need to do something with. So therefore, we opened up actually my kids funds, our kids banks right there. And so I put some money in for those. And those basically were looked at as like, they're going to be theirs right now. We're not going to do anything with them. We're going to leave it as is. Uh, but with Amy's whole life policy, there was a product that I still use today that actually a company called Bancorp. And I actually have got a equity line of credit against Amy's actual policy, and I'm able to write checks or do an ETF transfer right out of that. So it makes it a little bit more seamless. And so I use that right there for certain things like for my options trading, I actually took out and put money into my options trading business for that purpose right there. So that was one thing. The other thing, I mean, I know I've done later on is that we actually need a new vehicle. And so Amy and I, we talked about it, and we actually took a policy loan out, or actually from my her equity line of credit that we had against her policy, against her pay off that to pay for that vehicle that we had. And so now today, 5 years later, I have more of a clarity of like what I want to do with these policies and what I'm trying to accomplish,
Hmm.
versus just kind of at the seat of my pants, so to speak.
Yep.
And maybe that was the wrong thing, but it's just the reality of what happened.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah, that's helpful to hear. Just to clarify for listeners, you can take those policy loans right away in an IUL, but you're getting fixed crediting on the borrowed out cash value rather than full index credits of up to 9% or uncapped on the indexes that you're allocated to. So that's what you were describing, correct?
Yeah, that's
Yep.
100%. Yeah.
And depending on which agent you talk to, it could be a good thing. So I'll throw that out there as a teaser. Someday we should totally get into that because
I'd
Yeah,
love
that's a
to.
big one.
I've really ripped into it, and yeah, I actually gave advice to a client only a month ago to lean into it and take the loan, but
Hmm.
he just put his money to use for him, and an opportunity is getting him 12% back, and so
Oh,
Yeah.
well.
it's getting a fixed crediting of 2.5. But either way, we're gonna get just that bunny rabbit had a very yeah, distracting whatever. We're leaving that alone. So
Yeah.
uh it's interesting because as you talked more, Tyler, like your paradigm shift is becoming it's like clear. It's like out in the open. Like you're talking about using the loan for this and then for this. And it's like all of a sudden, like the way that you looked at capital before when you use cash for everything, obviously is a safer play. It can be a safe play to just go and spend a dollar. And that dollar isn't necessarily like I don't know if it's going in to work for you, rather than you're just saying goodbye for it and trading it for somebody else. And in this concept, it really sounds like you're starting to view your capital as like you have a job to do, and I need you to go and do that job. And I'm not trying to let go of you either. Like, I mean, that's talked about in this concept all the time that when you see capital, you see the opportunity to impact interest on one side of it or another. And you even made a comment about debt. Then I looked up the verse in Deuteronomy 15:6. Are you guys familiar with this one? For the Lord your God will bless you as he promised, and you will lend to many nations, but
Hmm.
will borrow from none. You will rule over many nations, but none will rule over you. And I think
Hmm.
it's fascinating that that's in the Bible that a definition of blessing and success is to be have the ability to lend to others. And so
Yep.
it's interesting that you bring that up. And so, I mean, that was one of the things in this concept that was attractive to me was just forcing me to think about that. Like, I'd never thought about lending to other people. If anything, I'd heard of friends losing money because a buddy borrowed cash and never paid him back. And now I'm learning like, actually, if my son buys a car, I'm going to lend him the capital and I'm going to make him pay me back
Yeah.
because I
Yeah.
Yeah.
want him to understand the power of of interest associated with capital and think about there's a missed opportunity there. And I think that is interesting that you're literally doing that with your kids,
Hmm.
which is
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
cool.
Hmm. That's interesting because I don't know. I've been hearing a lot like the first mention of something in scripture is incredibly important as to kind of highlighting the origins or the significance of something. And I wonder if that's the first mention of debt that like is very, I mean, there's a lot of wisdom and kind of caution type verses and proverbs around that. But if you're mentioning Jewish families like being in the banking business, like they're probably holding on to a verse like that to inform, yeah, their view of the Rothschilds, like freaking taking over the world and with banking and lending. So
Yep.
yeah, that's something to chew on there too. Um, Tyler, any last words around, yeah, what the journey's been as you've transitioned from learning about this yourself, being a practitioner of the strategy, to now sharing it with other families and individuals? Yeah, and appreciate you sharing your story so vulnerably. This has been really great.
Yeah. So, so yeah, it was, I guess at the time of this recording, I shared with you guys earlier that we're on the eve of when I'm sitting in my, you know, quiet time spot that I have pretty much every morning, and I'm journaling, and I feel as I'm writing, I just feel the prompt in the Holy Spirit saying, "Hey, you're going to start to teach and educate people how to do this, how to actually have their own bank." He specifically, I remember him saying, to become their own bankers. That's what he said in that whenever I was just journaling it out. So anyway, I didn't know exactly what that meant. To be quite candid, I knew it had to do something with infinite banking. I knew I needed to start because the thing is I was already telling people about this. Okay,
Mhm.
I was saying I was kind of they'd be like they would say, "Hey, what are you up to?" And I'm like, "Well, I'm kind of doing this, this, and this with my money, and I'm moved it over to here, and now I'm able to borrow against it." And they're like, "That's kind of wild." Well, I never will forget, and I'll just share the story, and it just kind of puts a bow on this right here. So literally, I I had Holy Spirit had told me that. Flash forward about a couple of weeks, I've talked to Amy, I talked to Ryan, and I was kind of coming to this point where like, okay, you know what? I'm really going to do this. I'm going to go get my license. And, I won't call it like a fleece. I don't believe in, fleecing the Lord. Okay. Like Gideon, because I've got the Holy Spirit inside me. So I don't need to fleece. He can tell me stuff. So I was sitting in Starbucks one morning and the Holy Spirit said, "Hey, you're going to actually talk to this guy named CJ uh, about infinite banking, and he's actually going to be interested in it." And I'm like, "Really? I mean, I'm not even doing this full time, Lord." He's like, "No, it's going to happen." I'm like, "Okay." So literally, I have this kind of men's group that we get together and we kind of work out together. Well, normally there's about 5 or 6 other guys that we all get together, and that morning it was just CJ and I.
Hmm.
Okay. And I'm I guess I kind of totally forgot about my conversation with his had, about an hour before that with the Lord. And lo and behold, CJ goes, like, we're halfway through the workout. He goes, "So hey Tyler, what are you doing with your money? I know you came into some money with your parents and and I know you do fairly well with your money. What are you doing with your money right now?" I'm like, "Well, CJ, interesting enough you ask me." And I just kind of went into my story and started telling him about infinite banking. And he goes, "Man, you won't believe this, but like a couple years ago, I had a guy sit down with me and my wife. We weren't anywhere near where we were financially where we are today, but man, this I know exactly what you're talking about, and I wish I could have done it then, but now today we're kind of in that position where we might be able to do this, Tyler. I mean, tell me whenever you get your license so I can talk to you more about this." So it was just a confirmation, okay,
Yeah, big time.
that I was just on the right track of the Lord. And, again, there's been a whole lot more that the Lord's unveiled to me with this. And I know I've shared that with you guys before about, the legacy piece and keeping the money together, but also not having silos with the spiritual and the financial, but actually that they need to be together, married up. And there's got to be a way to bridge that gap. And so that's kind of been a little bit of the passion where I'm at today with things. And I mean, I had a conversation today with a gentleman um, about that same thing. And then he potentially might be a client down the road. We'll see. But he's got about $250,000 that he wants to put into a life insurance policy and put about $55,000 into premium payments. Not saying you got to do that with everybody, but he wants to do that. And so we'll see if I might be, kind of help him out with that, a sounding board. So yeah, there you go, guys. It's cool to educate people. It's cool to share with them this whole concept. That's really kind of, I mean, again, let me kind of put an asterisk with that. This is not for everybody. Okay. And this is not the answer to everything. This is what I've found that is where I feel the Lord has led me to go down the path. You know, you might, somebody might be, listening to us right now and say, "You know what? I just want to do the Dave Ramsey thing and save my money, and that's all I want to do. And that's totally fine. And that's the path you've chosen, but for me, this is the path I've chosen, right? And again, it's not the answer to everybody, but for me, it is for us right now. So, yeah.
That was great. Thanks for letting us dig in there, Tyler, and yeah, for just sharing your story with this. Yeah, and really your family's story with this. Yeah, really cool to kind of hear the leaps that you made and where you are now, being faithful to the call the Lord's given you to share it with others. You're doing a great job at it. So that's it for today. Legacy hacks. We'll get this up here soon. And yeah, feel free to schedule a call with any of us in our Calendly links in the description below here. If you'd like to hear our individual stories, I'm sure we'll get to Kyle and I on here too, and how we've used and come into this strategy more specifically. But yeah, thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.